Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, University Nutrition Professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Trends in Science. Hey, everybody. Today we've got a trend in science, or starts with a specific study, really, on protein, but in a way that you might not often think of. We're aware that protein, for example, is necessary for muscle protein synthesis, right? Optimal, maybe 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending on the protein type and your age, maybe even up to 40, to stimulate muscle growth, which is important for lots of things, not just bodybuilders or powerlifters. But what about the cognitive side of things? There's actually been a background in science for some time looking at some of the mood, alertness, cognitive types of things that proteins might provide. So here's a study from Nouchi and colleagues, Nouchi. This is spanking new, just about 2 weeks old, from the journal Nutrients. And the title here is Acute Benefits of Acidified Milk Drinks with 10 grams and 15 grams of protein on Shifting and Updating Performances in Young Adults, a randomized controlled trial. Let's just start with the background. The authors state that accumulating evidence has shown that protein-rich milk drinks can rapidly improve cognitive performance. So if you're like me, you're interested in nootropic or cognition-enhancing things. You'd like to be able to perform mentally as well as physically. It says, however, the optimum dose of milk protein that's needed to improve cognitive function remains to be investigated. Now, the first thing you might say is, what's the deal with the acidified thing? You might be familiar with this idea that if you unravel or denature, if you will, a protein, you can increase the absorption speed. And that's what these authors talk about. If we go to the actual original paper, again, in Nutrients, January 2023, they specifically point out that previous intervention studies reported that a single shot of milk protein improved cognitive functions. The majority of cognitive benefits following milk consumption are observed 60 minutes postprandially, right? So after you drink it. Start the timer, due to the rate of absorption. So you might be familiar that casein, for example, clots in the stomach, and that can slow. It makes it a slow, sustained release of amino acids. That could be a good thing. But if you want something a little faster as far as the time frame goes, this might be the way to go. It says it is plausible that cognitive performance could be improved if milk protein is absorbed more quickly. Acidification of milk using stabilizers and fermented cellulose is a possible mechanism to enable faster milk absorption. So that's the idea with the acidified. What about the type of cognition they're looking at? So there's lots of things you could think about when it comes to cognitive performance. There's attention and memory of different kinds and processing speeds and things like that. So what are we talking about when we say shifting and updating performances? So just keeping this brief, from the authors again, for shifting performance, we use the plus-minus task. The plus-minus task was developed to measure the speed and accuracy of shifting from one rule to another for individuals. For example, add, subtract, or mixed blocks of tasks. So you're adding for a while, then, now I'm subtracting. You're shifting your performance, if you will, the actual task. So, for example, they gave them 20 two-digit numbers, so like the number 42. They give you 20 of those, and for a while you'd be adding in the first block, then subtracting, and then mixed, right? In the final block, the mixed block, participants were asked to shift between adding 3 and subtracting 3 from each of these double-digit numbers. Again, it's just one way to take a look at cognition and mental performance. For updating, they used a version of a verbal running working memory updating task. So without getting bogged down here, we have a short format with these podcasts, but a list of 4, 6, 8, and 10 digits. The outcome measure was accuracy. Again, ways to look at processing and this working memory update, if you will, as they were doing it. And again, they're trying to compare this to essentially no protein, right, a 0-gram protein dose, as well as the 2 doses that they were interested in, the 10 and 15 grams, just to see if it had any effect. They did some mood tests, whatnot as well. The conclusion here, our findings suggest that the acidified 10-gram and 15-gram milk protein drinks benefited shifting and updating performance in healthy young adults. Now, the healthy young adults is also interesting as well because you're not dealing with any level of cognitive decline that you're trying to correct in a sense. But pretty interesting stuff here that relatively low dose. I mean, you're talking about maybe 1 to 2 cups of milk-ish in protein dose, 10 to 15 grams, could have this effect. The shifting performance improved at 15 minutes after intake of the 10 and 15 gram milk protein drinks compared to the 0, right? And the acidified 15-gram milk protein drink lasted for 60 minutes as far as the performance enhancement. They go on to say that updating performance improved at 60 minutes after the 10 and 15-gram milk protein drinks. So does this agree with other work on protein and amino acids? For example, I think a lot of people realize that carbohydrates are often looked at as sort of sedative or anxiolytic, right, breaking down the anxiety by definition, whereas protein raises the thermic effect of food, and that might actually be a mechanism by which it helps with cognitive performance when your whole body is warmer, maybe reactions take place more quickly, that sort of thing. Not to delve too deeply backwards, and I did, but this is a paper from Frontiers Nutrition 2020. It's a Japanese paper, and its title is Intake of 7 Essential Amino Acids Improves Cognitive Function and Psychological and Social Function in Middle-Aged and Older Adults, a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. So if you've already been listening to the show for a while, you could go back and take a look. If not, you can go check out the earlier episode when we talked about some nutrition basics and terminology as far as what double-blind is, why randomization is so important when you're trying to answer questions about a whole population, in this case, middle-aged and older people, why a placebo is so important. I know a lot of you guys realize that. They say the purpose of the study was to examine the effect of ingesting 7 selected essential amino acids as a granular powder. Which ones? Leucine, phenylalanine, lysine, isoleucine, histidine, valine, and tryptophan. And they looked at cognitive and psychological functions in healthy adults. They were aged 55 and older. As I approach 55, I find that sort of funny, but 55 and older randomly assigned to one of 3 groups, ingesting 3 grams or 6 grams of these selected 7 amino acids daily or a placebo. And they did this over 12 weeks. The results were pretty exciting. The 6 gram of essential amino acids showed significant improvements in cognitive function. And again, depending on the type of testing that they did, trail making test B. You could go back and look at this paper if you want on the National Library of Medicine, as well as social interaction and psychological health testing. And they did that with a statistical measure called analysis of covariance. That just lets them adjust for things that might interfere or confound or partly invalidate their findings. Conclusions. Current findings suggest that ingesting the 7 essential amino acids led to improved attention and cognitive flexibility and psychosocial functioning, which is expected to prevent cognitive decline. Again, you're looking at older people, they're interested in that prevention. Although this was over a 12-week period. This is a little bit more chronic or subchronic compared to the study that really triggered all this from Nutrients 2023, which was a very acute type of protocol. So protein and milk proteins in particular, there is indication from the literature that it does enhance different aspects of cognition. So very cool stuff. Protein for your brain as well as your biceps. We're out of time though, so that's going to be it this week, and we'll see you later. The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.